Okay. Well, we have a small intimate group today. That's nice. This is officially week 8, which is exciting and also scary that we've been doing all this madness for that long. Last week there was a request for wrist and elbow, and I think that's appropriate for some of the audience we have here today. So that being said, I always find it incredibly important to do a little bit of anatomy first. So I want to talk about the bones, and then we'll build on the bones, some of the muscles, and then we'll go through and talk about the movement, and then we'll talk about some simple stretches and stuff to keep all of that moving. So the hand. The hand is insanely complicated. There are a tremendous number of bones, but what I want to sort of put in your brain, so there are these long bones. Your long bones start right here that run all the way to the tips of your fingers. So the bones here are just really long, and you can feel them, and you can trace that all the way up to the tip of your finger. The long bones of your hand. Then between my fingers here, there's a lot of smaller bones. There's 7, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 little bones here that sit in 2 little rows, and they constantly rub against each other with every movement. And then here we have 2 long bones. So your radius and your ulna. Ulna is also what makes up your elbow. So the ulna runs here, radius runs here, and those bones turn on top of each other, as you can see here. So we have humerus, we have the radius and the ulna, which turn on top of each other when you turn your arm. So they have to move a lot between each other. Then we've got these long finger bones, and then these little carpal bones. Okay? So that's the general anatomy. Nothing super fun about that. But it's good to sort of put that in your brain as we build on it some of the musculature. So from your elbow, so if we think about the inside of the elbow and the outside of the elbow, it's almost like a mirror image of each other, of the muscles that run from your elbow that go down to your fingers. So if I want to talk about the top kind of outside of the elbow, all these muscles, if you grab that meat of your arm, that's about 7 muscles, and all of those muscles run together in a common tendon, and certain muscles stop at different places, but they run all the way to your fingers. So if you grab the meat of your elbow there, and this is a super common trigger point release that you can do to yourself, and we'll talk about that in a second, but if you grab that meat and let your arm relax, and then if you move your arm, your wrist up and down, you can feel those muscles flex. Okay, so if you flip your arm over and feel just the inside of your elbow and do the same thing, you should be able to feel the same type of thing. So there's a group of muscles here that flex, and then there's a group of muscles on the top that extend. Does that make sense? I'll do that again. So the group of the muscles on the inside of the elbow flex, and the group of muscles on the top outside of the elbow extend. So when we're talking about wrist pain and wrist issues, it's incredibly important to think about the meat of the arm. So yeah, so that's sort of the main musculature. Then if we just look at the hand, there are a lot of muscles that are just within the hand. So we've got the main big muscles are here in the meat of the arm. But then in the hand, if you kind of feel, this is a funny name. This is called your thenar eminence. I don't know, fun, stupid anatomy that nobody really needs to know. Then this meat is called your hypothenar eminence. Again, stuff that is not totally important, but your thumb has its own set of muscles. These muscles are just for your thumb. And then these muscles are just for your pinky. So your pinky and your thumb have their own special system. These 3 just function on the same with these muscles up here. Okay, that being said, the wrist. So obviously the wrist is a mobile joint, and elbow is stable, wrist is mobile. So there are 6 different movements of the wrist. So the wrist extends, it flexes, it supinates, it pronates. Then we have radial deviation and ulnar deviation. You don't have to memorize those, just sort of make note that the wrist has nearly as much range of motion as the shoulder does. So it's got a ton of range of motion. Let me just check my little list of stuff. Okay, then the nerves. So there's 3 main nerves that run in the wrist, and they, the radial nerve sits under the thumb, the median nerve is right in the middle, and then the ulnar nerve is on the outside. And so if you just take your 3 fingers and rest them on your wrist, that's pretty much where they run. That's why this area is super susceptible to issues, because we've got all those tiny little bones, then we've got all these tendons running to the fingers on both sides, and then on top of that, we've got these 3 nerves. So in this tiny little area, obviously we can grab that whole little area. There's 7, 8, 9 bones, at least 8 tendons, 3 main nerves. So just in that, so that's what you're grabbing there when you hold your wrist. So there's just a shit ton of stuff going on there, pardon my French. So if we then think about all of that, and now we're gonna stretch it and move it around. So you can think of how complicated it is when you flex your wrist, how all of that has to be moving well against each other for this whole thing to fly. So that being said, let's stretch it out a little bit. There's all kinds of stretches. I'm gonna pick out my favorites. So in the little, if you, like you're gonna pray, you can either keep your fingers apart or you can keep them together, either one, and you can play around with that. I'm gonna keep my fingers together. If you push your wrists down, you're gonna come to a spot that is tight. So you can hang out there for about 30 seconds or so. This one is easy to do on the fly. You don't really need to do too much. Then if you turn and point your thumb away from you and then down, that's going to intensify that stretch and make it a little just different. So that is, you feel it in your elbow, yeah, you might feel it. So you could, because of those nerves, you can get a pull not only of the nerve, but you can get a pull. So Leah, if you were getting a pull in your shoulder, that's nerve. That has nothing to do with muscle. That is all nerve. So here, if you're in this position, then you can literally just turn them down and do the exact same. So now the backs of your hands are together. So you can turn these up and you can turn these down. What's that like? There's a church, here's the church, here's the steeple, flip it over, there's all the people. Do you remember that little thing that I always used to do that as a kid. I don't remember it, but it's always makes me think of that. So those are simple stretches. And again, if we go along with those, the pattern and things that I've been preaching, you need to hold that for at least 30 to 60 seconds for you to actually get a true physiological change of anything. Then standard, like this is the very simple, basic, arms straight out, grab onto your thumb side, and press down. Then from there, you can either turn out a little bit or turn in a little bit, and it's just going to change the direction of and the location of that pull. It's also important, so if we think about those tendons go all the way to the fingertips, like we just talked about. So if you scoop those fingers up with it, then you're going to get a nice stretch. So the same applies then if we flip it over to the other side. You can either do fingers down or fingers up. You'll have to turn those fingers either in or out to change the location of that stretch. So we go from from hand down to hand up. So I'm pushing a stop, saying stop, and grab your fingers. Grab the fingers, and then you can push them either to one side or turn them in. And all I want you to do is pay attention to then where you feel that stretch. So there's no right answer or wrong answer of I need to put it in this position. It's just wherever you feel the most amount of stretch. That's where we want to hang out. Okay, so we'll do two last ones. So a little trigger point for the meat of that arm. So we talked about how all those tendons come together up top here. So this is right where my elbow bends, just beyond where my elbow bends. You can grab onto that meat. And obviously you can tell I'm putting a fair amount of pressure. I like to kind of grab and slightly pull away. Like I'm pulling that meat away from the long bone there. Now, Yali, that looks good. So you can hang on to that for a while. And it's good to move around a little bit, and you're gonna find a spot that is more tender and a little more sore than others. And that's where I want you to hang out. Now these are big. I mean, you think about how often you use your hand. These are big, strong muscles. So it's not like you can't really hurt anything. And this is not where the nerves are. The nerves are on the other side. So you can really let this spot have it. You can also just press straight down into it. And roll back and forth. And then when you find a spot, yep, and that's where you should hang out. And if we go to the underside, the same thing can happen, but you'll find a little groove. This is where your ulnar nerve goes. Your ulnar nerve goes just to the inside of your elbow bone. That is where you don't want to press. And if it's tender and irritated, then you know that you've got some nerve stuff going on. So if you come just a little distal to that, which means a little away from that towards your fingers, you'll be able to grab onto that meat also.
Wait, so the nerve's on the inside?
Yeah, the nerve is on the inside.
It's on the inside.
Yeah, if you put it on a relaxed position, like a relaxed position, you'll feel a groove. You'll feel like a hard bone here. The nerve sits just inside, so the nerve is right between my fingers. That's your funny bone. When you hit your elbow on something and it hurts like hell, it's because you actually just hit the nerve in the groove. That's what your funny bone is, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they call it a funny bone. So it's not freaking funny. It's not funny at all. Okay, so those are little trigger points. Then I didn't ask you guys to do it, but if you have, you can also do grasped into this. So if you take that coconut oil and the butter knife, which we've done before, you can do that to this whole area. And even lightly here to release some of these nerves. So you don't, yeah, if you want to, you can take that butter knife and a little bit of coconut oil. I'll just show you real quick. So butter knife, coconut oil, and you'll hold the serrated side away, finger on and just go to town. This is one of my favorites to do for my lifting stuff. So yeah, simple, easy, pretty basic, nothing too crazy. Do you guys have any questions about any of that? Actually, Leah, so what, do you have a pencil or what are you using? You can use whatever, and that's totally fine. There's not like, I like the butter knife because it is as close to my regular Graston tools. But really, anything. I mean, there's an old chiropractor that used to treat the people at Humboldt CrossFit. I think that his claim to fame was a CD case. Obviously, that tells you how long ago this was, but he would use a CD case on the fly. So it's not like, it doesn't have to be this crazy specialized tool. As long as you are moving that fascia around, it's going to be helpful. And I love coconut oil. Okay, you guys have any questions about anything? All looks good. Pencils and all. I'm gonna unmute you guys. Oh, Leah, I think we might be. I'm gonna unmute you. Oh, maybe I'm not. Okay.
Oh,
I'm muting everybody. Everybody's good. Oh, I just did it again, Leah.
you just muted Mary Susan.
Okay. I'm trying
No,
to.
I'm good.
Okay.
I hate that what you guys are doing right now. That hurts me. You know that, Sandy. Every time you do it to me, I'm like, ah.
But it's so good. It's so good.
It's so painful.
Okay.
I have pain on the outside of my hand right now, like right there.
So
Oh.
you can do the same.
It just feels like it's pulling or pinching, you know? Same thing.
Oh, you know what? I didn't do the distraction. Let me talk you through that real quick, because that might be helpful for what you.
Right here, it's like a little bit of a pulling. Like,
Yeah, if you grab your wrist, so I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So you can see,
okay.
Can you see that separation?
Yes.
So if you grab onto your hand and pull it, like you're trying to pull your hand off of your arm, it might feel a little crunchy, but it might feel kind of good.
Oh, it crunches. It pulls and crunches.
Yeah. So if you do that, so if you pull that, you can then pull it into flexion.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you distract it, so biking, Sarah, if you think about you're on those handlebars all the time, there's so much compression going through your wrist. We talked about those two little rows of bones.
Yeah.
So if you can distract them a little bit and go into flexion or extension,
Okay.
that's really helpful.
I'll try that.
That was on my little list of stuff.
I'm glad I brought it up.
Cool. All right. Well, I don't want to take too much of
Leah's over there
time.
working on herself.
Hey, I have fixed so many things by myself through Sandy's direction on this fucking quarantine.
Seriously, Sandy, like between you and your team that you got at Pivotal, like
Yeah.
I-
Good
so
little
stellar. So stellar. Yeah. And that butter knife technique, I'm in the kitchen cooking dinner right now. I just grabbed some olive oil and it works like a charm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Doesn't
I'm
have to be
sitting here
too
and I
much.
said, my son might think this is a little strange. I'm glad that he has this kind of in the background. Like, Mom, what are you doing with the butter knife? And I'm glad you really showed us what part to use too, because
Yeah.
you know me, I'd probably go as hardcore as possible with my dumb
That's
ass.
funny. A quick funny story. My other favorite thing to use is a rolling pin, like just a regular rolling pin. And how my world always goes, once I treat like a husband, I often treat the wife or vice versa. So I had a husband and wife team, and they had similar issues, and so they were using a rolling pin on their quads. Well, that rolling pin made its way to their bedroom, and their daughter was visiting, and she was like, hey, she was making a pie of all things. She goes, Mom, where's the rolling pin? She's like, so don't read into this. A rolling pin is in our bedroom. She's like, what? Yeah, you have a rolling pin in your bedroom?
That's so funny.
No.
No
That's
judgment
funny.
here, man.
Yeah, no.
That's funny.
Awesome. All right, guys. Good to see all of you. Have a fabulous rest of your Monday, and I will be back next Monday.
Thanks, Sandy.
Thank
Nice
you.
meeting you guys.
Thanks, Sandy.
Take care, guys.